now. Good morning. Happy Monday, PSW staff, clients, friends. Join us for Film Scoring Monday. We look at a scene and I take out the music, and you guys look on Spotify or YouTube and, give me a great score that could be just as good as, what the director wanted the composer to do. It's been so much fun. This is my favorite part of the week. We'll continue doing this forever and ever. Last week we looked at Spider-Man. That was really a great job. Very the Danny Elfman score. But you guys came up with some great stuff that was exciting and adventure-like. We're going to stay a little bit in the adventure-like realm a little bit, but much darker movie. But again, classic movie that we should all know about and talk about. Today we'll be looking at the 1982 film Blade Runner. So when I think of Los Angeles in 2019, I think, oh no, I can't say that because we already passed 2019. This is supposed to take place in 2019. In LA, this is very, very scary. It doesn't look like this, or it didn't 3 years ago. Thank God. So Blade Runner is a 1982 science fiction film, directed by Ridley Scott. We've looked at Gladiator. Ridley Scott did that. Alien is probably, the big one that 1979 Alien. But he also did like Thelma and Louise. He's a great British director, 84 years old. And Blade Runner is adapted by Hampton Fancher and David Peoples. Supposedly, Fancher was the only one that read the book that this movie's based on. Ridley Scott and Peoples didn't read it. It's based on Philip K. Dick's novel from 1968, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Philip K. Dick, Man in the High Castle, a lot of things that he wrote in the 60s were adapted into movies much later. So, and Harrison Ford's in this, big action star. Supposedly had a horrible time filming this movie. Sean Young is in it, Edward James Olmos. People call it neo-noir. So, we know what film noir means. The French critic attributed it to it in the 40s. Black and white, detective, voiceover, femme fatale, all those characteristics. This movie has some of it. There's a voiceover in a different version of this movie. We looked at Down Three Dark Streets, and we talked about film noir. So neo meaning new, and also genre of cyberpunk. That's what people have attributed this movie to. So, and we also scored Mulholland Drive. That's a neo-noir movie too. Angelo Badalamenti, his score to that opening of just that windy street. That was really cool when you guys did that. So this movie cost $30 million to make, it had only made about $41 million. It came out not at the best time because even though it's a cult classic now, it opened the same time as E.T., which, that just swept everything. Spielberg's, which we also scored. Also the same year, The Thing was that year too. 82 though, we get Chariots of Fire that comes out, not like Blade Runner. Same composer, Vangelis, who we'll talk about in a little bit, wrote the great theme to Chariots and wrote the music to this. Chariots of Fire comes out, Gandhi, huge movie comes out. Poltergeist, so Spielberg's produced that, so he's busy, and he's just coming off of Indiana Jones too. Indiana Jones as well. Rocky 3 is out this year. A lot of big movies are out. So just a basic plot line. It's set in 2019 Los Angeles. It's the future, obviously, and so they're synthetic humans, but we call them replicants. And a lot of movies have done this, but they're bioengineered by this kind of evil genius. And so they need Deckard, who's Harrison Ford, a policeman. He's forced to hunt down these replicants and retire them, essentially. So Harrison Ford is a Blade Runner. And of course, because noir, there's got to be a little bit of a love, love struggle here. When he goes to the big corporation, he meets Rachel, who's Sean Young. Sean Young, lovely Sean Young plays, and she's a replicant, but he falls in love with her. So there's some, trouble that ensues there. And yeah, the music was Vangelis. This was really critically acclaimed score, because as we know, Vangelis does electronic music, which everyone in their bedroom does now, but in the 80s, pretty new stuff, because as we looked at film music, big scores in this early 60s, and from the 30s, songs with Easy Rider, New Hollywood. John Williams brings Jaws, the orchestra back. And John Williams is going to kind of, keep doing Spielberg movies. But then we get some electronics in the 80s. That, there's just different ways of using music to express, new forms of filmmaking, with Kubrick and Ridley Scott and all these huge directors that are starting to come up with clever science fiction, beyond reality stuff. So this score has a lot of electronic music in it. Vangelis's parents gave him music lessons when he was a kid, but he didn't like it. He thought formal training hindered his creativity. He was much more reliant on his ear and his own improvising at synthesizers and keyboards and organs. So some people do well with training, some people don't, so it hinders them. So supposedly this how he wrote the music to this, he would just improvise on his keyboard and synthesizers with images on the screen that Ridley Scott would send to him. This is how probably most composers do when they get scenes. They just kind of look at the movie and kind of just keep going like this on the keyboard until something clicks. On the soundtrack, there's a bunch of pianos. There's keyboards, synthesizers, Fender keyboard, Rhodes, but then there's some glockenspiel percussion instruments, snare drums, timpani. So he's using classical percussion instruments with synthesizers, and it's coming up with a whole new sound. So what we're going to score is the opening scene, because this is the futurescape of all these futuristic shots of Los Angeles. So let's take a look at the scene. So we hear the dark electronic score there. So we'll have to come up with something like that. This is very moody. This is not super melodic, This isn't big band swing. It's not jazz. It's got to be an electronic score, I think. Let's make it electronic score. I'm trying to think if we've done electronic music before. Maybe there's been some submissions, but I don't know if I've asked for that yet. But yeah, and so why don't we I just added some room city sound, so let's take a look at the scene without any music. So we'll need something, and this is important because, like we've talked about with the opening, this sets the mood of the whole movie. So we have to get this score right because the director's relying on us as the composer to set the tone. There's no words, there's nothing there. There's just imagery, this kind of very dark image of Los Angeles, and the music has to evoke that. If we start with In the Mood by Glenn Miller, it's a comedy movie, and it's just completely in the wrong thing. So we need a dark electronic score, possibly. We've also talked about, because just as a little ending, the Bradbury Building's filmed, and we did a class on the Bradbury Building, and this was filmed location for this, and then also Union Station, we did a class on that. So of course this is made all futuristic looking, but I thought that was kind of cool. That was the police station. So so they filmed here, and kept some of the big monuments here. So get that into me by tomorrow, and we'll see results for Friday. It's gonna be a great week. Looking forward to it, and have a great rest of the day. See you tomorrow. Bye.